Hi everyone, welcome to The Superficial Spirit, where we explore how pop culture affects our spiritual experiences. My name is Peter Breeze. Join me while we ask a very important question. What the hell did pop culture do to me? Welcome to The Superficial Spirit. Thanks so much for joining me again today. Oh my God. Okay, just so you know, this episode towards the end gets extremely graphic. Okay, I wasn't planning on going there. Y'all know I'm trying to do a nice family spiritual show, but I have Shanda, Lear, and Thanks Jem both on the show today, the stars of the weekly digital drag show Text Me Live that you can watch every Wednesday on Jem and Shanda's Instagram. It starts at 7 p.m. It's so good. I'm a huge fan of both of them, but please go watch them. And you know, I've been exploring having multiple guests on the show, and oh my God, this one was so much fun. I really, honestly, my intention with every guest is just to dive deeper into who they are, our connection together, the things that make them tick, the things that inspire them. And you're really lucky if you have a podcast and you're able to draw people from your personal life that you know really, really well, because it just opens up the door for the topics and the way that you can connect and share stories with people who are listening. And I love having my friends on the show, and I feel so lucky that I have some crazy ass people in my life that are willing to share this time with me. One thing that I'm increasingly curious about is how people who are in the public life deal with things privately. You don't have to be a huge star on a global scale to know what it's like to have personal drama unexpectedly bleed into public life, especially with social media. You know, whether it's a picture being posted that you weren't aware of, or maybe you fucking posted something years ago that's getting brought back up again, or maybe people are just being shady in the comment section about you. I mean, there's a million ways that you can sort of experience that. And a lot of my friends from Clubland are public figures or have been public figures. And because I know so much about them personally and about what their creative journey has been, I've been wanting to find out, how do you deal with that? What's the line between, you know, I'm a performer and I'm sharing my life with you on stage and through social media, and also, you know, there's rumors about me that you may want to know. When I was in the club, I loved when there was rumors about me, but I also didn't really have social media. I mean, people weren't really weaponizing social justice at that point, and cancel culture hadn't yet arrived. So, you know, for people to call me a cokehead, or that I was full of myself, or that I wasn't talented, or that I partied too much, I didn't really care, because there was no real way for that to hurt me. I mean, I guess my reputation did get in the way of some opportunities that came my way, but mostly I just loved being infamous. Now with social media, you know, a rumor can take an ugly turn really quickly if people feel like it's problematic, or if you did something that wasn't right. And I'm torn on that. Like, I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't think that because one person says one thing, we need to drag them and publicly shame them and ruin their life and take opportunities away from them. No, if you see something problematic online, you know, if you know the person, fucking reach out to them, talk to them about it, and see where it leads. Anyway, this is a great show. I had so much fun talking to them. Again, I'm warning you, if you hang on to the bitter end of this conversation, which is about 50 minutes from now, the conversation turns. We start talking about unexpected porn that you see on Twitter. And the floodgates kind of open at that point, so you've been warned. Anyway, here's my conversation with Thanks Jem and Chandelier, or as I like to call them, my famous friends. You know what? One of my favorite memories of you, Jem, is when we were doing the Lady Gaga after party. and or no, it was the release party of Art Pop at Oasis, and you were doing Do What You Want with My Body, I think, but you told the music to cut it, and then you were singing live with Do What You Want with My Body. And it was like, wow, Jem's like doing a live acoustic version of a
Yeah,
Gaga
she's
song.
really feeling it tonight. Yeah.
Well, it felt like I had to go really big. I'm literally dancing like Lady Gaga and still not getting an applause from you bitches. So
I felt like you did really great that night. I remember you had the little finger laser beams. I was like obviously a big part of like the club. I love the club, but it wasn't until I would say Spice Girls at the Rio when I became really connected to you all, because I would be at all of Jem shows, all of Jane shows, and I would like carry bags, and that's when I really was like, holy shit! There, it's so much more than the 3 minute song that people see. Like all the hours getting ready, and then taking, like, you're basically going on a vacation when you do a show with all the fucking shit that you carry around, and the general audience might not know that when they're watching Drag Race or going to a show at night.
you notice how they didn't say anything about your show, Shanda? I feel a little, for you specifically, I feel a little
What do
perturbed,
you
but
mean?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
Well, you're just like, I went to Jade and Gem shows and carried their bags, and I really got to know them, but fuck Shanda.
I
That's
don't
what I
remember
heard.
carrying Shanda's stuff to her shows. That's all. I was at all of.
I
And
think that just speaks to you had to go to many different venues to get booked, and I had a residency.
and also, Jem, we don't need to start with the drama right away. It's been 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh, bitch.
Okay, anyway, so let's just get down to business here. We're about a year into the pandemic now, right? I interviewed both of you when I started my show months and months ago, maybe almost a
Yes,
year.
ma'am.
And at that time, we were still kind of like, I think there's like a honeymoon phase with the pandemic where working from home and, like having all this time wasn't as daunting as it is now. So how are you both feeling a year into the pandemic?
I still work from home. I don't know. It's I guess I've been thinking about it more because it's the year, but I've also been like not thinking about it at all because we're getting closer to movement and seeing an end of things. So I don't want to get too far ahead of it and be like, all right, it's gonna be over soon, because like nobody still knows. So I'm kind of compartmentalizing, and I'm probably gonna need therapy afterwards.
Yeah, like the ripple effect of not really understanding how much it affects you until it's all said and done, and then you're forced to go back to real life. I was also on your Twitter. I was on Twitter this morning, Shanda, and I saw you tweeted that you were scrolling on Scruff, and then you left, and you're like, "No, thank you." And I've been on Grind, like I have
Yes.
Grinder, and people are not scared about, like, from based on the messages that I'm getting. There's no like caution about COVID. The hookup culture is still there.
No.
So, is that what you meant by like you didn't want to keep scrolling on Scruff? You were like, no, this is too tempting, or just you didn't agree with being on it? Period.
Well, I mean, I won't lie. I've like hooked up with people during the pandemic, but there was a lot of like back and forth beforehand to be like, all right, are you okay? Are you this? Are you that? It was basically like a more in-depth STI like conversation. But what I meant was I have no attention span to be sitting on an app and talking to somebody back and forth
Yeah,
of like,
yeah,
what are we gonna do?
yeah.
You need to close that
Yeah,
mouth,
you know what,
Miss
Jem? You just
Morrissey.
got a fucking hand job down the street, so you need to calm down. Stop pretending like you're shocked by these casual sexual encounters, honey.
I have a boyfriend, and I gave the hand job to him because it was his birthday. He needed to go to bed.
You didn't have to do it outside behind the bins.
That's not what I had
I'm not.
heard.
I'm not waste management.
Well, oh well, I don't know about that.
Well, but yeah, anyway, that's what I mean. I have no patience to sit down and talk to somebody about like, oh, how's your day going? How's this? Like, there's no
Yeah,
that kind of
that's enough.
conversation has no flavor unless you have actually met somebody in
So,
person.
would you rather just have somebody be like, "Hey, here's my dick, come and bounce on it," or like, wait,
Absolutely not.
okay. So, I feel like,
No, I miss going on dates with
uh,
people and like having a face-to-face interaction. I mean, I'm so charming and cute,
Totally.
it's better to do it in person than overline.
Imagine,
Whatever.
remember chat roulette where like people would just show up. Imagine that was
Oh my
Grinder where you went
God.
on and then just suddenly you were like video messaging. Video messaging. We're in the future. That would be really
Do you
intense.
know that Plenty of Fish introduced video? It's like, so did Match, because I see commercials for, there's so many commercials for Match.com during basketball games. But I remember Plenty of Fish was doing this online campaign of like, hey, sign up because we have this video messaging, like you can go on virtual dates and you don't have to sign up for a Zoom account and you don't have to do this and that. And I'm like, I think it takes a special kind of unhinged person to want to like be like, all right, this complete stranger, let's have a 15-minute video call. What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
I can't even Zoom or FaceTime my
Yeah, I
family.
feel that. I feel that. Jem, Queen.
I
Oh, okay. Don't even need to ask a question. She's ready to go. Yep, go ahead.
well,
Miss Rodeo
you did ask a question.
1969.
I just haven't answered it yet.
Okay.
I let Shandy go first.
You're
Remember?
so polite.
I
What a
tried.
change of pace.
First of all, screw you. You're both white and have a lot of privilege.
Oh God, here we go.
So I just want to make that
Less than
clear
10
on this
minutes. Less
podcast.
than 10 minutes in. It's already coming down.
I honestly, with the pandemic, I think I was ready for it. I grew up very isolated and like alone a lot of times. 'Cause I didn't feel like I fit in. There wasn't a lot of queer culture on, and there wasn't social media like there was in the '90s. So seeing anything queer was always like after 8 o'clock, and it was like a big deal on TV. Like if a guy or two girls kissed, or if there was queer movies, it was like showcased after dark at midnight on Fridays on on these channels. So I didn't experience um a lot of like doing things. So for the pandemic, I really realized I zoned in on like, oh, I love crafting, I love ironing, I love gardening, all these things. I have all the time to do it now in the world because I had all the time in the world before. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up in in a family circle, so I really kind of felt like it was normal this pandemic. I felt like the only good thing that came out of it is I did my taxes and I was able to get Justin Trudeau's welfare check every fucking month. So
I totally feel like, so it sounds like you were prepared because you had spent a lot of time isolated. So it wasn't as daunting as
yeah,
somebody who is maybe constantly surrounded by people. I was
exactly.
grateful too that I wasn't in my big party phase and then the world shut down, because I would have definitely been that person who was probably going to those bad underground parties, because when I was really in the thick of club culture, I needed to be around people at all times. But now with the pandemic, I was nesting with Evan for like years before. We didn't do fucking anything. So I relate to that, where it's like, it didn't feel like such a shock to be at home all the time, because that is actually my preferred day to day life. But now more than ever, I've been craving the club.
Yes,
You release, if this was Peter Breeze, like let's say even 5 years ago, and this was happening, I would be waiting for your song Super Spreader to come out and I would be at the club.
Oh my God. I'm calling Maxwell right after this. That's a great idea.
I think there will be a renaissance. I also think everything's going to be more what's that word when it's hedonist? So I think
Hedonistic. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
Pleasure.
yeah,
there's going to be
totally.
yeah, so I think I don't want to say bathhouses are going to blow up, but I
Oh,
think
honey.
that type of clubbing and that type of mindset might go there. I also think that it might go back to the old ways where clubs were like warehouses and like giant, restaurant rooms with stages. Like the stage was the focal point of the restaurant, not the actual space. So like there was a place here in Vancouver called the Cave that was like so popular in the 50s and
Oh
60s and
yeah.
70s here. That was a tiki lounge that, you know, all these huge famous people had come and played, like that type of, like, oh, it's like West Edmonton Mall, the water park, but it's a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be like a weird mashup of different things because we do live in Canada, so it's not always tropical. So people do want to have and feel that thing.
I do worry that there won't be any affordable spaces to do
Exactly.
stuff,
Oh yeah, that's all.
because the wheel of capitalism, especially during the pandemic, has just been completely annihilating
Mm-hmm.
things. And
Mm-hmm.
if we I think we could get the super clubs, but I mean, it might be like, hey, go to the big, Donnelly Super Club on Granville Street, and they have a stage where they let like, five drag queens a month do one number. Like, I think it'll be a mix of both, but it's funny what you said about missing the like needing the energy. I've noticed that I'm a lot less gay over the last year
Okay.
because I'm not around the energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've been doing my podcast and I've been listening to the conversations back. I'm like, I feel like I don't sound like I did a year ago. And I think it's because I'm not in person having banter back and forth with people. I haven't been on stage. I mean, me and Jem doing Text Me Live is great because I feel very gay and white for that hour a week. But it's like it's two friends like having a conversation. So we already have our own language and jokes and stuff. I really miss the big room of getting all of my references out and things from people and that interaction.
Evan says that to me all the time. Like when I'm on the phone with my drag queen friends or my queer friends, I turn so much gayer, according to him. Like just the things that I say, the way that I say them, and yeah, I think that when you're in that community, like you're in a club or at a party with all those people, it pulls that out of you. Whereas when you're at home, you kind of go down to your like.
I go straight to my Virgo self.
What does that mean?
That's like because I'm a Gemini sun, but I'm a Virgo moon,
Okay.
and so I'm very much like
That explains a lot about you. And that probably explains why we're also good friends.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Gem is a Virgo sun, so like we love to be at home. We can totally comfortable spending time with ourselves and thriving in it. And yeah, I don't know, like I notice my voice changes, the way I talk changes. I mean, that happens because I like to, please people and ingratiate myself into a conversation. But it's just really strange to see how much time alone has like shifted things.
Yeah, and do you think I keep imagining like him having this fantasy of like running to the club as soon as we're able to, and Jem, like you said, like a hedonistic people are going to be fucking and doing drugs and drinking, and it's going to be like this. It's going to be like they can't get enough. But I
Yeah.
bet you I'll go out once, and then I'll just go straight back to being at home all the time. You know what I mean?
It will be the same. Like it's either people are going to get into the club or they're going to be in line trying to have sex in line, or they're going to allow cigarettes back at the bar, and that's the only thing that's going to make it cut. You know what I mean? Like it. Yeah, the bar is not. It's like it's not the end all. It's only when you're young that you feel like this is a culture. I know people there. The bartender knows my name. This is my spot. But
And I think about that a lot. Is I do not want to go back to my 20s. Like I don't want to relive those days at all. But I do think that it makes me a little bit sad to think, once you're in your 30s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, then you sort of accept that the crazy chaos, wildness of your youth is gone. Like
I haven't, and I'm still young. 40 is not old, honey. Maybe to you, because you are white and gay and have privilege. But where I come
Yeah,
from,
but what's it like being 50?
I remember my 50s. It was wild. I felt like I was really
Yeah.
coming into my own. Is there a way and is there a need to keep that reckless energy of your youth and to stay in touch with it for your whole life? Like, does it serve a purpose forever, or is it only when you're young and crazy, get it out of your system and then you move on?
I think right now in the world we are living in the most, everybody, I would say a lot of people are living in a world where they want to live like they're still young. People are obsessed with collecting things, obsessed with franchises from the 80s and 90s, even the 70s. They want to see remakes, they want to see sequels, they want to see
Mm.
a prequel, they want to see a comic book of that movie because it continues a story. They want to see it on TV now, so they're bringing back actors 30 years later to redo shows, to finish the show. And it's the nostalgia I really feel like is so extreme right now. Like I honestly don't think I will forget what it's like to be a kid. Also because I'm doing drag and that really makes me feel young. It
Mm.
makes me feel you got to remember lyrics and funny sayings, and you're doing makeup and you're inspired by all the things you grew up with, or you're inspired by new things which are a replication of what was already done before. So
Like you weren't in the club acting a fool. You were like there, but compared to some of the people we know, like me, like you weren't fucking getting really drunk and getting really high and acting a fool. You were always kind of like out there. You would get drunk sometimes.
I knew better by that point. I partied when I was a teenager. I went to raves and I did ecstasy and meth, and I stayed up all night and I sold drugs. And yeah, like I thought that was, like that was where, I wasn't 18 yet, so I was like, there's queers here, there's a club culture. It's people are coming together, they're expressing their feelings. I'm meeting trans people. Like I met a trans girl, I forget her name, but I just remember being impacted. But she was tall and skinny, and I remember she was like wearing like snug or like some cool European brand that like was asymmetrical and funky and like made out of like polyester, like weird plastics. And it just was like that era. I just remember being, oh wow, there are these people in the world. They aren't just being marginalized or murdered in something I read on the back of a column. Because even being trans back then, you're in
Yeah.
the back pages. You weren't. It would never be in
Yep.
the front. It was very
Mm-hmm.
derogatory talking about someone who's trans or anyone who wasn't white. It is still derogatory to talk about them because people don't know how to give them proper pronouns or talk about the real issues. It's always from a white perspective, usually a male perspective, and they're arguing some stupid point because they want to be heard. And I'm like, girl, you've been yelling since the Bible's been written and you've been wrong. So all you white people need to shut the fuck up already. Get back of the line.
That is the good thing about the club culture and
Yeah.
raves is like when you're an outsider, you can find your people and you don't feel
Yeah.
so alienated and alone. I felt like that too. I know, Jem, you did too. Was that your experience, Shanda?
I have to say, I don't think I ever felt as deeply feeling like alone, or I definitely felt like a little bit different. Like I had more interest, but I'm so self absorbed that I thought that everybody else was wrong.
Uh,
So I was like, I'm into this stuff, but it's like, am I weird for being into this? No, this is cool. Everybody else should get into this. So, and I mean, that's probably you like, like Jem says, that's absolutely my privilege of growing up and being like spoiled and told like, you can do anything you want, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's double-edged sword.
like I just interviewed somebody who works with underprivileged youth, people who are on the peripheral who have a lot of struggles, and she said that some of those people have never had one good thing happen to them, and then they get help from a community organization or a social worker, and then they suddenly have something to compare it to. And when we were talking, I was like, man, my whole 20s, I was stressed out because I wasn't famous, and that to me is like the ultimate example of privilege. Like the only thing I had to worry about, I had love, I had support, I had money. I was broke, but my mom would bail me out if I really needed to. And there are people who I know that are probably around me that had never experienced like that one good thing. And that really stuck to me when she said one good thing, how some people go for so long without knowing what it feels like to have positive reinforcement, love, support. And if you constantly have negative feedback, you don't expect anything else from the world. Jem, you and I have talked about this a lot. Um, and
Hmm.
even saying it now, like I feel so stupid sometimes to be like, well, in my 20s, I only wanted to be famous, and isn't that privilege? But the only way I can connect those two is by acknowledging that and being like, I see how that is so ridiculous and so amazing and lucky of me to have that experience. But also, you know, I that experience must feel so far away from some people.
Yeah, it's really tough to think about sometimes because I mean, I grew up in, Cape Breton where like there's a very clear difference of people who have it well off and people who don't. And growing up and seeing that starkly, like so much in your face every day at school, and then learning things when you get a little bit older of like exactly what you said, where people their home life is not well, but then leaving that place and then going to a city like Halifax, as small as it is, feeling like, oh wow, I'm in the big city now, and like there's so many more communities. And then when you get involved in those, you're like, ah, it's also bad here too. Like
Yeah.
it's just a constant you know, if you're not aware and cognizant of it, you can turn into one of those like shitty white gays who's like, not my problem, or like, oh, fix yourself, honey. And that kind of
Yeah.
stuff from being a kid and seeing kids in school who are like really did like have nothing at home or at school, it's always kind of stuck with me, like I've been so lucky, you know.
Yeah. And then you have Jem, and you like the thing I think that's so polarizing about you, Jem, is that you are so shameless in how you share the inner conflict that you feel about the world around you, and in like people that you've worked with or people that you encounter, because again, like the way you were brought up is so different. And I think that comes out in your drag a lot. And this is one thing, Shanda, I know I talked to you a little bit offline, and same with you, Jem, but your dynamic on Text Me Live is really interesting because I feel like Jem is always kind of waiting to get all of this stuff out. And in a way, Shanda, you serve as like the anchor and almost mediator, where sometimes Jem can go in a direction where it's like, oh my God, what is she going to say? And it verges on being problematic if she's
Sometimes.
insulting people or causing drama. But then, Shanda, I see you in the shows being like, okay, I want to make sure that she has this space and support to express herself so she feels safe, but then also trying to keep her in a line so you don't end up saying something that is maybe more problematic than what you mean, because I know, Jem, you do have a reputation for saying shit where and doing things to people that is so polarizing, and I've been your friend for so long, and so I know what's behind that. But for people who don't know that, it can be really like, holy shit, like why are you saying that, why are you doing that, why are you going to that place? And it takes time to get to know that. So I want to hear you two talk about your dynamic on Text Me Live. And does what I say reflect how you feel? Like, do you feel, Jem, do you feel like sometimes you can feel yourself going in a direction that maybe you shouldn't? And Shanda, do you feel like you are helping?
I agree with what you're saying. I do feel like sometimes I am dying to get stuff off my chest, and that is, I don't know, like I maybe because I was never heard growing up or was never allowed to be heard, or if I was trying to speak out, it was like, shut up, you're not important. So that for me as an adult is very important. I do sometimes go and veer off topic because I have a whole story about it, and it like reminds me of something, and it might not come out as eloquent as I'd like it to, but that's what I do appreciate about Shanda and Anthony, because they have the schooling and the knowledge to actually say what I want to say properly, that does make sense in an educated way for somebody. Because it might sound harsh, but I'm literally just saying what I see as the truth. And a lot of the times in society, that is not what we want to do. We don't want to talk about the truth. We don't want to acknowledge the truth. And my entire adulthood, I have to. Like, why am I the only one that has to accept what's going on in the world around us, where a lot of people are like, la di da, that doesn't affect me?
Yeah, I mean, I love the dynamic, obviously, but
I do.
when we were working together a couple years ago in the drag group, it drove me up the wall and I didn't know how to process it. And I think it's because now looking back, the dynamic of like we were trying to do a show, and in between you making all of your very true points, there was so much criticism about how the show wasn't good enough. Everybody's costumes were bad, which I know is banter, but
After a while.
that on top of that, and then the group dynamic with everybody else, it was just way too much to handle. And all I wanted to do was get in, get out, do the show, entertain people. And so I was like, I can't fucking deal with everybody's backstage nonsense. I think it would be, well, it's insulting to tell people that they can't express themselves and their ideas. Jem is, I mean, I'll tell you to your face, Jem, you're so smart and so aware of what is happening in the world and socially, but it reminds me of like, it reminds me of when the BLM hashtag like first took off like a couple years ago, and so many white people got riled up, and they're like, this is when the first, all lives matter. It's, it's not just black lives, it's all lives. And the woman who or like the group that started the hashtag, they're like, the full hashtag should say Black Lives Matter too, or
Mm.
as well. But you don't put that on the end because you want to make an impact. You want to say Black Lives Matter and get your message across and get people interested. And there's so much discourse online that misses or intentionally doesn't add that second half to get a reaction out of people. And I feel like that is unconsciously Jem talking all the time, where you say something harsh about, somebody who's white, but the other half of the sentence is like, because I'm indigenous, I'm two-spirit, I've seen this my entire life.
And as you both are talking, what I'm realizing is it's hard to confront Jem or like the conversations that might happen that make people uncomfortable without, like, if you go in for Jem as a person and say she says bad things, she's nasty, blah blah blah, you're missing the other part of the conversation. Whereas Anthony, you just said, when Jem says you're a bad white person, the other part could be because while I was growing up, this happened, this happened, this happened. So to confront Jem's behavior, you also have to include a conversation about the social climate and what has happened leading up to that moment. It's just like poverty. It's just like, I mean, racism, homophobia.
Yeah.
It all comes from somewhere. And I think what I experienced working with so many drag queens is queer people have trauma. We all do in different ways, some more intense than others. But when you're dealing with strong personalities, it can be really easy to forget the bigger story, especially if it feels personal. Like Jem and I have gotten to really personal fights. I fought with a lot of my close queer friends because when somebody's coming for you, like Anthony, you were talking about criticism in the group that you guys were a part of. Once in a while, you can brush it off. If somebody continuously is telling you that you're bad or you're wrong or you're not good enough or you didn't wear the right costume or you're not showing up on time or whatever, then you get to like you push somebody into a corner enough, you're gonna react. And that's when things turn toxic, right? Because you don't have healthy means of
Yeah.
communicating. So this is also what we talked about earlier in the conversation, people not knowing what goes on backstage. What do you guys think is the responsibility of local queens and public figures, really, to let the audience or your social media following know what's going on backstage?
That's a long question. I think to touch on what you kind of mentioned already, when I say these things or I do these things and I don't tell a back half, that is something I need to work on because I don't think I am ready to share all of my story.
You also don't owe that to people either.
Exactly, exactly, and that's where a lot of that stuff does come from. I don't owe you shit, and you don't owe me anything. I'm literally gonna tell you what went wrong from my point of view so that either you can fix it or I can fix it and not allow that behavior in my life anymore. Like, I was in this group also with Shanda, and I have given all that I can information wise as an elder, as a person of color. And if you don't want to accept anything about that from me for over 5 years and not even want to hear my story, that's not on me. I'm trying not to not make sense. I want to make sense of what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying is like you feel like what I'm hearing is you have certain experiences with people in the drag community and you feel like you say what you're feeling and what you're experiencing and you're not getting in return the acknowledgement or something.
But that was specifically about friendships in a group because we were in a forced family dynamic. That's because we are building and bonding and doing something. So that I'm talking about something specifically. In general, with the drag community, I never felt like I fit in. Everyone is rude, narcissistic, self-centered, and it is like high school to the max. If you're not in a
Yeah.
certain clique, you don't fit in. I don't mind standing on the wall, shutting them all up once I go on stage to do what I goddamn do because they will all stand in line eventually afterwards, and they have.
Anthony, what do you think about like the like things that happen backstage? Like all of the because your experience as a queen and as a drag performer isn't limited to your performances. There's so much more that goes on in the journey of being that person in the community and connecting with people around. So how do you deal with conflict or drama that happens in and around the performances?
It really depends on what is happening in the room, because there's been lots of times that I've got swept up in it and have been more than happy to engage in drama and being shitty to somebody and getting into fights, and then other times where I just completely eject myself. But
Okay, so let me ask you a question. That last night when you told us you were leaving and you were like on the mic doing
I don't even remember this. Like
Oh no.
I think like I can't. I remember going to one rehearsal in that creepy little preschool room
Yeah,
and like being so over it and like basically depressed and like sitting on
yeah,
the floor and being like, I don't want to do this.
yeah.
And then I remember you asking me if I was okay, and actually Jane coming over and saying, I hate seeing you like this. I remember that specifically because it was like nothing that she had ever like said to me before as a friend, saying like, I hate seeing you like this. I was like, oh wow, like you're actually noticing like what's happening. And I left. And then I can't remember if I did a final show or if I just messaged the group chat, but I remember you guys did a show afterwards and you had like a cardboard cutout of me, like like at the top of where we had like the sign that said Rat Pack. You like put a cardboard cutout of me and said something like, she's always watching. I don't remember if we did a final show.
It was. I believe you just showed up in jeans and a toque.
I do that going to any
Yeah,
show.
that's not abnormal for Shanda.
Yeah, I hate wearing women's clothing.
Drag community, I feel like doesn't happen after you put in the work. There's like a 10-year that happens and people actually start paying you respect. People start actually saying hi to you in the club first. You know what I mean?
That is so true.
Like,
People, the first however many years I was doing drag, except for like a handful of people at the Cobalt,
mhm,
the people at the Cobalt were
because
like
they knew you.
Isolde, Peach, you,
Yeah,
and well, I guess like Anappropriate is
yeah,
like she's just a close friend of mine. I'm trying to think of like who else would have been a regular. Bambi had been gone at that
yeah.
point,
But
but
like
whenever Bambi came
Janita would
back,
have been
Oh,
there, and
Janita.
like,
Anita for sure. But like that small group of people, once I did like one or two shows there and they were like, "Oh, you're a fun performer. Let's be friends." Still, I would do shows in the West End and like the only person in the West End who was relatively nice to me, there was Carlotta and Celestial Seasons.
mhm, yeah,
Everybody else was like, that's that clown from the East Side. That's, you know,
noses
that's
up.
this guy. That's the weird guy who does this.
Mhm,
And then once I did some kind of show, and then Tommy D saw me perform, liked me, and then I, you know, Jane and Valen asked me to be in Brat Pack, and then once those two things happened, and I did like one West End show where they're like, okay, here's, you know, this new group of people. Instantly, everybody wanted to be my friend. It feels really dumb to say like fame or think about fame because it's such a it's so tiny. It's such a
Yeah.
small thing. But I mean, really going from basically I could be anybody off the street and then literally people messaging me on Facebook and Instagram and even Twitter and wanting to be my friend and buying me drinks everywhere I went. I was like, Are you all for
Mhm.
real?" Like this is
mhm,
Well,
insane.
that's the added layer that unless you're in it, it's really hard to tell. Excuse me. Somebody who's not in the club scene, what it's like to be a nightlife celebrity, where you know if it's happening to you, you don't pay for you walk in front of the line, you don't buy for drinks, people want pictures with you, you're treated like a star. So in all for all purposes, you actually are, and you experience that,
Mhm.
but you also get the downside that comes with that, like alienation and feeling like people don't really care about you as a person, you're more of a commodity. This is something that comes up with a lot of the queens that I have interviewed in the Vancouver scene. Like everybody is cautious about identifying as a celebrity or as a public figure because they don't want to sound stupid, but that is the experience. You're right, it is a
mhm.
small
Yeah.
microcosm of performers, but ultimately when you do leave a mark and you do stand out, that's what happens to you. And the one thing that I think is unexpected is I thought when I was going into the queer community, because I was gay and I was going to sing about being gay and I was so out, that I would be instantly lifted up by my community, but I had the opposite experience. People made fun of me. People threw drinks at me in the club. People wrote awful comments whenever Extra West talked about me. And only my circle of friends were the ones who supported me. Everybody else made fun of me. That's how it felt. And so it was really destabilizing
Yeah.
to have all these dreams, go into the queer community, feel like, oh my God, they're going to lift me up. They're going to be so excited because I'm so excited and we're all the same. And then instantly becoming a target because you do end up
No.
being somebody that people pay attention to. And
Mhm.
that was really hard. I mean, scar tissue is still there. That's why that's why I stopped music. And then it took me years and years to start the podcast, because I ultimately, you lose your confidence. Slowly people chip away and you're like, maybe I'm not that special. And I know I'm not that special. But when you go from being a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed club kid thinking you can take over the world to feeling like you get swept up in drugs, alcohol, toxic relationships, you do have to build yourself up again.
You're special to me, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
We're all special in this little chat.
Yeah, we are all special. But it does, you know, the love of performing takes you there. And then it's the things outside of that that have the biggest effect.
Yeah, like for me right now, it's finding a new home. So yeah, they sold my house. I have 2 months. I've been here for almost 9 years. So that's 9 years of, settling down. Like, I didn't realize having a home was such a big deal to me until it's being taken away from me on external factors. Just because growing up, I was in foster homes, group homes. I was never adopted. I was homeless by the time I was 18. I was sleeping in these girls' basement, doing drugs with them all the time, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to be, 19 soon, and I just was like, either I stay here and this is my life and that's it, like nothing else will happen, or I have to pick myself up and believe in myself that I can go somewhere without anything and make it, and one day at a time, and that will be okay. And that, for me, just finding a home is scary, but like moving to another city was like so mind bending because there just wasn't opportunities for native people that I just never saw that. Like, it was very rare. Like, if I wasn't a singer, so I was never going to have that, oh, she's a singer, so we could monopolize her and, make her something. I wasn't good looking. So I wasn't, there was all these other things that I thought I wasn't. And I'm still learning that maybe I am those things. I just, have to believe in myself. And it's like you said earlier, I never had positive experience. It was, you're a disgusting native kid. Your dad doesn't want you. You're never going to be anything. You get slapped on the head, knuckles on the forehead, standing in the corner, locked in the basement for months on time because there's so many stuff that's been stacked up in negative that it is really hard to be positive.
Well, I do feel like your home has been an iconic part of all of our journeys. I have so many great memories in that little blue house, and you do really come alive in your home. When you clean and you cook and you decorate, that I think is the glimpse of who you are at a core level, and that comes out in your drag when you cooked at Cool Moms and your homemade drag vibe. So this is sad, but it will lead somewhere else, and you and Matt will be totally fine. Yeah. So just remember, at one point you were scared to move to Vancouver, and then you found that beautiful home. So this is scary, but just think of what could be on the other side. And
I don't have like a parental figure, I think, not even a drag parent to like just, share that information with. I share it with friends. So sometimes I feel like some of my stuff is just too heavy for people who are not older to really realize and have perception on these type of issues, because they have been around for over a long time, and they have seen these things, or they know people who have dealt with that stuff, and they have foresight. I just that's kind of where my drag came from, because I didn't have the mom. I became the mom that I always really wanted. Like, and it's like, sometimes it's hard talking to yourself all the time.
What do you guys think of the new Lil Nas X video?
Oh my God.
Like,
so hot.
I cannot believe
so
We are so, first of all, I was obsessed with Troye Sivan, the twink pop star that I love all of his songs. And then Lil Nas X comes out and he's giving the fucking devil a lap dance looking like a fucking snack. I can you like yeah, tell me what your thoughts were when you watched the video, because the fact that there's a fucking gay pop star
A gay black pop star.
who's owning their sexuality in that way so shamelessly and also so fashion and so of the moment.
I mean, I sent it to Jem as soon as I saw it. Like
she saw it before me. I thought that was crazy.
If I had seen anybody like that when I was younger, who was just so relaxed about their queerness, because when I was younger, I didn't have any real queer thoughts until I think I was maybe like 16 or 17.
Oh,
like,
honey,
not one.
I was like 1.5.
Yeah. I didn't have a single one. And the first one I had was about Tom Cruise and Top Gun. And even that, I was like...
Was that the one where he dances in his tidy whities?
No, that's Risky Business.
Yeah, but it was Tom Cruise and Top Gun. But I was like, well, who wouldn't find this guy attractive? You know? I mean, look, you, especially in the 80s, you look at him and you're like, that man is objectively handsome. And so I had that kind of energy, and then, you know, it sort of builds, and then it's when it started to build that I was like, well, I want to take action on this, but I have like no frame of reference, and the only person that I even related to was David Bowie, but he's married to a woman, so like, you know, it was a whole thing. So anyway, that's a long way of saying, had I seen this when I was in high school, I would have been like, great, perfect, done.
You know what is interesting, and I think it would have helped with our sexual. Like, I'm remembering seeing quit playing games with my heart, Backstreet Boys, where that was when I was like, something is happening in my body. But you know, and that whole generation, our whole generation, is attracted to like that beefy, muscly Abercrombie look. But if I was growing up with Troye Sivan and Lil Nas X, no, but like now I'm feeling like it's okay to openly be sexually curious or interested in super femmy twinky guys. But even when in 2009 I was a club kid and the center of attention, nobody was talking about how they were attracted to femmes, and nobody was attracted to club kids and drag queens. Now it's so much more common, and I wonder how sexual appetites would have been curated differently if in the media we were seeing a wider range of what queer people were, not just super buffy, good-looking men all the time.
I agree with what you're saying, but from my perspective, the buffiness was definitely more 80s, early 90s. Because by the time Backstreet Boys did Quit Playing Games with My Heart, Kevin was the only one who had muscles. He was also the oldest one.
Brian and Howie had muscles.
They had muscles, but they're also 5'8" and 130 pounds.
Oh,
so
they
look more
tiny.
muscular on film, like they do on Instagram, right? Because it's all about filters, lighting, about acting. Nick wasn't allowed to be shirtless because
I knew that.
He was like underage, and he was like just really normal looking. I guess he didn't have the abs. So I totally see what you're saying there. And sexual appetites would have been different. Like as a femme queen, not seeing femme category for 30 years, but subconsciously and on the DL, I was being feminine with straight gay guys, the gay guys who didn't identify being in the gay culture, or straight married men who were gay who just weren't able to be free.
Well, one thing, Jem, that I remember about your experience, like when we were both single, your sexual experiences were really tied into your drag and your gender bending and your being gender nonconforming. You attracted men who wanted that. But even 5 years ago, that was not it still felt like a secret. Even between you and I, you were like, yeah, like sometimes I have to wear my dress. And it was like, oh, really? That's so interesting. But now it's like, you know, people like drag queens on Drag Race every season. I'm like, there are fucking drag queens that I would fuck in drag because they're so attractive. And now you feel like I don't need to be scared about what that says about me to be attracted to a highly feminized person. But that has changed rapidly. This is like,
yeah, I think we're at the end of society, to be honest,
because we like femmes.
That's it. It's done.
But you know what I'm saying? Like the Earl Burrows were at the, you know,
Yeah.
there's like, I think there's like famous things that like from history that talk about like the feminization of men is the downfall of civilization, you know, like stuff, stupid old stuff like that that are like being pressed in the Bible and all these other weird stupid places. But all that stuff was there. The fact that they want to eliminate it and hide it, but then it comes out worse.
Yeah, because it's repressed.
So now all the kids are, you know, are all freer. And then our kids are like, we want to do anything. We can do anything. And that's how it should have been. We probably would be in space on Mars already if people weren't being stuck.
If we embraced femmes earlier. See, space travel it's directly linked to basically wanting to sleep with twinks. That's what I'm hearing.
Gay history through the
Jem.
Greeks, the Romans, India, and then also like the samurais having gay relations with each other because they told them they would fight better. Which so you grow up and then you read all this stuff, you're like, well, how come they didn't teach us proper history and the brutalization of Black and Indigenous people on the continent or sexuality? Like the fact that they want to limit us learning. School in general is wrong. How they do school is wrong. So
I remember in my health class in the 9th grade, this very specifically because it blew my mind, but our health class was called PDR. It was like personal development something. And we had this tiny purple health book, and it was the one about like human sexuality. And there was one small text box. There wasn't a chapter devoted to same-sex anything, but there was one tiny text box about, you know, like kids when they're like going through puberty and feeling things. And this tiny text box said, it's not uncommon to have like one or two. They qualified it where it was like occasionally have attraction to the same sex, but then the follow-up answer was like, but it's not common to have the relationships. And it just like, I was like, it's in the book telling me that people have these attractions, but it's also telling me that nobody does anything about them.
Like it ends that curiosity.
And I just couldn't.
yeah.
And I didn't even want
That's
to
not
ask
true.
the teacher about it because it didn't make any sense to me, because again, this is before I even thought about like men in any sort of like, you know, sexual or romantic way. And I still think about that once in a while. It's so weird.
I do think in some ways it's good to let people know that sexual curiosity is good because it's like a spectrum. And I think more straight men specifically would feel comfortable exploring their sexuality if at a younger age it was brought up like, if you want to explore being with a man, you can explore. It doesn't mean you're going to marry that man and be with him forever. It doesn't mean you need to identify as gay. Shanda, you and I talked about
you're
like
not
sexual.
capital G
Yeah,
gay.
we talked about like sexual identities when I had you on the show the first time because you identify as bisexual. And I think a lot more people are more fluid by nature, but they feel the pressure to identify as something. And there would be, I like you, Jem, when I first moved to Vancouver, most of the people that I hooked up with were straight identifying guys who are now with women who are not gay, but it was a moment in time, honey. And it was fun. And I hope that they don't carry shame with that. Oh, do you guys think though that the internet is making people more extreme sexually? Because sometimes I'm on Twitter and I'm like, what the fuck? How is this turning you on? It's so extreme. What's
an example of something that
okay, so I was on okay, here we go. I was just scrolling on, a friend of mine has an OnlyFans, and I go to his page often just to, because I feel like I know him and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody that I know personally is doing things so blatantly online. And most of the time it's like sex, blowjobs, like nothing crazy. But then he also retweets clips of other people who are sharing sexual content. And one of them was, I thought it was going to be like an eating ass porn or like rimming or something. And it was a guy and another guy. And, you know, one of them was, they were like in a bathroom and it was like fisting. And I was like, okay, I'm not really into that, but I've heard about it. It's common. But then it was like the punching, and then it was the prolapse. And I remember I was watching it like this. I was like, okay, oh, that's crazy. Oh my God. And I felt that was the first time something has happened to me on the internet where I felt like I wish I could unsee it, because instantly I was like, was that an accident? Were they trying to make that happen? What happens when the prolapse happens? Do you lick it? Is that part of the sexual excitement? And also, is that healthy? Something from the inside of your body coming to the outside scares me. And I don't want to be I don't want to be judgmental if this is how people feel like they want to explore their sexuality, but that really I did not know that existed until like this year. I did not know that was a part of people's sex life.
The only thing I had to say about this, the only part inside of your body always comes out because you have foreskin. So
What?
Yeah, no, you're right. Like your penis is the foreskin is like the sheath of it, right?
I'm
So that's technically
circumcised, so I
inside
have
your
no idea
body.
what you're
Oh,
talking
you're
about.
back?
Yes, I
So you've
am.
seen.
Oh, I forgot. 20 years ago, yes.
Okay. Just to be clear, what are your thoughts on the prolapse porn?
I mean, it's not for me, but I mean, like, I think that the most extreme, whatever you think is the most extreme, dial that up 10 more times,
Yeah.
and that's already been online for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever you could possibly, the strangest thing that you could think of, it's
But is
already
it bad for me to bring it up in this way? Like to be like this, I think that this is weird.
Well, I think you're curious because I think eventually you're going to be 50 and you're going to be like, that's going to be me. I want that done to me. I didn't realize that scream.
You know what?
Actually, that's it. Eureka!
Honey, Evan and I together are like a vanilla bean frappuccino, honey. We're very
Blend that frappuccino, honey. Those ice cubes don't melt themselves.
Oh my
There's not even a top and a bottom. You guys are just sides now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
As somebody who has fisted men,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna say usually they're over 6'2" and bald and muscular. And I didn't realize, like, I didn't know that when I first did it, I was he was so hot that I was like, sure, whatever. I'm 20 something. I've seen things.
I've seen things.
Like,
I've seen things.
up to the elbow.
He was like
you?
almost twice as tall as me, so it wasn't like I was gonna be like over and worried about. But I can't believe that. Okay, so when it slides, the worst part is when your hand slides in, the anal sphincter sucks down on your wrist, like it's like you're in an octopus.
It spasms shut.
Yeah, so it's like that feeling is the weirdest feeling, especially when you're wearing jewelry. So
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I was wearing a bracelet, and I never got that watch back. I never saw him again.
Oh no. Oh no. The superficial spirit is no longer spiritual. Shanda, do you want to share your experience on fisting?
So, like, what you said about, is it bad to bring it up this way? It's not bad. You have to have the conversations about kink and about sexuality and all that stuff. It's just like I'm always like really aware of like where the line is of making fun of it and then like just kind of laughing about it to process it, you know?
Yeah.
Because
I'm not making
it is very no, you're not making fun of it. I mean, you participated in it. And apparently we're great. But like
apparently, yes.
But yeah, it's I like to laugh and joke about things to process it too, but I mean there's hundreds of thousands of people out there who genuinely like this, and I don't understand it. That's fine. I have my own things I'm into that people aren't going to understand, right? Like, well, I mean, everybody knows that I'm into like chubby, like chunky guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like everybody knows I like fat guys. But
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't get it, and they're like, that's so weird because you put me next to a guy that I'm like, he's so hot, and they're like, but you're so thin, like it looks so stupid.
When I was partying a lot in Vancouver, I hooked up with so many different types of people because well, I was high and drunk, but also I'm open to, and girls too. Like when I'm in a moment with somebody and I feel compelled to do it and both people are consenting, I am fucking all for trying something out because I think sex can be really fun and exciting. But you have to be open-minded. You have to be like, oh, I always thought I was attracted to only people who look like Tom Cruise, and now I'm sitting beside a bear who's 300-pound and super hairy, but my body is telling me I want it, but my mind is telling me I'm not. Honey, you gotta listen to your body sometimes.
Honey, follow those guts.
Weird kinks to me probably would be like eating poop and sticking silicone into your balls and penis. Like that's
the saline injections into the balls.
What? What do you mean?
Oh my God, Peter, what Do you even use your computer? Do you know what the internet
I
is?
know.
Wait, are you talking about like breast implants, but for balls?
But it's
Yeah.
not. It's not an implant. It's injections because they.
It's a syringe.
Like to feel the pain?
And they love the look of the engorged testicles. They love the look of enormous balls.
Okay.
But that one actually worries me because that's not safe. And that guy in Seattle actually died a couple of years ago because of botching the injection.
Does it go
And there's a
actually
weird,
into the
like,
testicle or just the like ball sack?
just in the sack, like around.
in the shape of the penis. So like,
Okay.
most of the time it's done illegally. It's like it's not a thing you could get done professionally.
Well, yeah, because it's incredibly unsafe.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about sounding when you said injections.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, that's so common. That's so
I've had a
common.
Q-tip up my pee hole. Come on.
The first time I had to get an STD test was because of Jem, actually, because we were at Twisted and I was walking into the club and she was standing at the top of the stairs screaming,
No.
I gave Peter Breeze chlamydia. I gave Peter Breeze
No, what
chlamydia.
happened is you stopped talking to me after we had sex. So the only way for me to even get you to look at me was to say something vulgar in line going into the club because you were Peter Breeze. I had privilege and I could walk into the club without paying, waiting in line. I know the bouncers. I got free drinks out lined up on the bar ready. Bucka Red Bull.
Anyway,
I shouldn't be surprised that the two of you have slept.
we were
together.
like 18. But the other thing is like that's how they did STD tests. It was basically sounding. That's what it was. I actually love that we got onto this topic because I wanted to talk about sometimes I encounter things on Twitter about porn or about sex and I'm like, I don't understand it. So now I feel like now I've crossed that line on the show. I can do it more often.
Well, I can't wait to send you things I have on my Twitter.
Oh my
now.
God, message me anytime.
Do you guys have any closing thoughts for the listeners? Anything you want to share?
I'm just really happy and proud of the work that we've done. We do it weekly. We don't have to do it. The audience comes back. It's been doubling over the past year, which is awesome. I would love more fans. But you can't push anybody.
You can't push anybody. But you can't push anybody.
I can push them away, but I can't bring them closer. So
I mean, I would say to anybody watching and listening to this, this dynamic is the proof of like relationships take work.
Screw you! Yeah. I'm a pill. I'm not. I know.
You're not a pill, honey. You're a hurricane. You are a hurricane tearing through town every fucking Wednesday night.
I'm a suppository, honey.
Okay. Thanks for tuning
See you
in.
on Twitter, Peter.
Bye.